Yeah.
And there are a lot of tools that they say was from Iceland.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe only to get an impact. Yeah. So what would you like to talk about?
So we're gonna introduce the video.
Yeah.
So we are back now in our CAS project about global issues, and today I am with my economist teacher. Represent yourself.
My name is Ruben Vandenbroek. Teacher, my students call me Mr. Vandenbroek, but in class it's usually just Ruben.
Tell
Keep it easy.
a little bit about your background.
Okay, I grew up in Liberia in West Africa from 1973 until 1990, but in 1990 we left because of the Civil War for Charles Taylor. Then I came to Holland for 9 months where I started IB, and then my father found work in Indonesia, and I decided to go with my family to Indonesia, so I repeated my first year of IB in Jakarta. I also finished it in Jakarta. And by the time I came back to Holland thinking about what I wanted to study, I knew I had to do something with the Civil War, so I really wanted to understand poverty and the unequal distribution of wealth or income in the world, and so I enrolled in development economics in Wageningen. I did my studies there, and in 2003 I graduated, and I worked for 10 years in development work, international development work, and decided to become a teacher after the government cut funding for development work, and after I started to think about what I wanted to do with my life, and I'd rather teach other people about what I learned than keep practicing what I learned, just to inspire the youth.
Good. So today we're gonna talk about sustainability. So let's first start. What is the definition of sustainability?
Wow, there are about 50 different definitions of sustainability, all ranging from very stringent rules and changes to be made to trying to make the system as it exists today work more in respect with nature. But I would certainly have, in my definition, if I would have to give one, is let's stay within the Earth's carrying capacity and secure resources, wealth for future generations. And I'm talking about natural resources, but also basic things like clean air, clean drinking water, but maybe also more abstract things like a good judicial system, good education system, and a fair distribution of income. I'm not necessarily interested in what's efficient or what makes a lot of money. I'm interested in what's fair. Let's talk about what we find fair. That would be my definition of sustainability.
Right.
Does that help?
Yeah. And do you think that nowadays we have like a lot of companies that are sustainable, or we don't have anyone? What is our opinion?
It all depends on which definition of sustainability you want to use. I remember a research done a couple of years ago by the Body Shop, where they wanted to have a sustainability index, primarily hoping that they would end up on top, I think. And they started off with a pretty strict definition of sustainability, and after about 3 months of research they gave up because of the hundreds of companies that they were looking into the profiles of. They couldn't find a single one that met their definition of sustainability. So are there any companies producing sustainably? I'm sure there are, but it's not a majority, and it's certainly not mainstream.
And your personal view about sustainability, do you think we should persuade this, or no, you don't think it's important? What is your opinion?
I think if we look at the climate crisis that the world is talking about now in Poland for the last 2 weeks, hoping to get to an agreement today, I think sustainability should be on every country's political agenda. And if it's not necessarily about depleted resources that have already taken place or deforestation, I think we should be talking about sustainability in terms of the climate and keeping what do we need to do to keep climate change under 2 degrees centigrade, or preferably 1.5 degrees centigrade.
Right. So, do you think that the main problem about sustainability is about the ethics of the employer? Or do you think like it's not about the ethics, but like the market leads to the company cannot be sustainability if the company wants profit?
Well, we've seen for about 60 years now that the way we're doing business now, large corporations have a lot of shareholders which want dividend, a healthy dividend. If they don't get the healthy dividend or the dividend they want, they invest in another company. So these are shareholders that leave. And I think large corporations have their minds set on profit maximization to keep shareholders happy. I think a good start would be make your employers shareholders. So we're all interested in the same thing. And if you make your employees shareholders, then they think more about in terms of their job security and the sustainability of the company and in general.
Yeah, I share the same opinion of you. I feel like sometimes the pressure that the big people in the market leads to the companies not being able to be sustainable companies. And I think like one good way would be like we need to think about like the future. We cannot think about, oh, this is my company and I need to make money and that doesn't matter about other companies or my methodology of making profit. I only want the money. No, you need to think like in a bigger perspective. So you live in the same earth that other people live. So like you should be responsible for your actions. And like money is important, but it's not everything in your life.
I think I agree. If I hear on the news or I hear about a company that decides to fire people because they're not making enough profit to keep the shareholders happy, then I think we're missing the whole point of economics. That if we want a stable economy, we need stable jobs. And if we have to choose between high profits or high job security, I know what I choose. I'd go for high job security.
You talk about the objective of economies. Could you talk a little bit more of the ethics within economies? So about like
yes, like for example, a logging company that is moving into, let's say, the Amazon area for large trees so they can have good timber. I'm thinking that there's some responsibility at the company side as far as replanting trees goes. But I also think there's a lot of responsibility for government to make very strict rules and concessions on how much logging is allowed to be done, by which companies, and at what extraction rates. Because I think the extraction rate at the Cerrado in Brazil right now is, because of cattle ranching, is just too high. And I think the Amazon is well protected because of international legislation, but if we look at the periphery of the Amazon, like for example the Cerrado, deforestation rates are so high over there that it's bound to be unsustainable for the future.
And in the economics area, do you usually discuss about sustainability, like with your co-workers or?
Yeah, I think if you look at the IB curriculum for economics, there's not enough room in the curriculum for sustainability. It's a small section of development economics. I believe part of the change should be in the curriculum and have sustainability come back in microeconomics, macroeconomics, international economics, and still development economics. I think it should be moved to the forefront.
Right. So what are your thoughts about like trying to solve this problem? Like which actions we should take to try to solve this problem?
I have a couple of ideas. One of the main ideas is to reduce trash. I read an article in 1995 written by Herman Daly, and he said back then, if the whole world was as developed as the West was at the time of 1995, trash would be the world's largest problem. How to get rid of it and how to reduce the amount of new trash adding onto the pile. So I think if we start to look at trash not necessarily of being of zero value, but as being an asset or a resource for recycling, then I think we're making a big progress. And I think we should start thinking about new forms of ownership, where we don't own something and throw it away after it's broken or spent, but that we start moving towards lease contracts, that we rent stuff more. Why can't I rent my jeans from, say, a jeans manufacturer and hand them back to them when I no longer want to wear them? I don't want to throw it away. I'd like to hand it in for recycling, and I'd like to know where.
Yeah. And one thing that you can do with trash, that like some trash you cannot recycle, but you can use this as biomass to produce energy.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So,
Yeah.
for example, if we look at agriculture, where I was working for 10 years when I was doing development work, what we did over there is we looked at the amount of the crop that was thrown away, for example, in pineappling, where they get fresh pineapples, they cut a lot of the pineapple away so they can end up with pineapple in tin, and the tin pineapples were exported out, and the rest of the pineapple that they didn't use was just thrown out into the field. And we said, well, why don't we collect those pieces of pineapple that's eventually going to start rotting anyway, and from the gas that's released, why don't we get energy out of that? I think that's a smart way of looking at resources, and primarily resources that are discarded now because we think of them as having zero economic value.
But who do you think should be like the bigger rule in this change? Like every person, or a government, or UN?
I think consumers, if consumers are aware of their own carbon footprint and the amount of trash, for example, that they throw away, or what they're doing with their stuff after they no longer need them, I think the biggest change can come from consumers.
Yeah.
I think everybody in their gut will know that we're on a path that is unsustainable. We need to change something, and if we're looking at what to change, I would recommend reducing the size of our carbon footprint.
Do you think that education could help?
Yes.
In which way?
I think we should, I would like to talk about responsible consumerism in my class. Or I'd like to talk about smart resource use. Or I'd like to talk about your awareness in general of the use of what's going on in the world around you. What kind of world are you going to enter when you've graduated from university? What jobs are going to be available? How much job security is there going to be in the future if we look at robot technology? I think these are issues that we need to be talking about now, just to prepare our students for.
And do you think like we should start thinking about it, like trying to solve, or do you think like determinism, like the environment around us will be like one time so much bad that one time we will say, hey, we need to change this?
I like the idea that we can tackle this problem before it gets really bad. If we pass 2 degrees centigrade, this is what I was talking about before with climate change, then I believe we're already too late.
Yes.
So let's try and have a mindset change now, which I think we're going to be investing in the next 20 years. And we need to start somewhere, and the sooner we start, I think the better.
Do you think like Paris could make an agreement is good, or I think we should be more strict?
I don't know. I mean, if we look at the climate data for the last 10 years, then it seems that we were on the right track. If you look at carbon emissions in Holland, for example, it was on a downward trend from the last 3 years, but now, since we're moving out of the crisis, we're almost at full employment in the Netherlands now. Exports are up. And we've seen that in the past year, carbon emissions have actually spiked again. So I think we really should be talking about the level of economic growth that we want in order to provide income and job security for employers and stay within the carrying capacity of the earth.
Yeah. Do you want to add anything more?
I don't think so. I'm very much looking forward to the new IB curriculum, and I hope to see more attention and space to talk about these issues.
Yeah.
Because there are no simple answers for this. And what I try to do in my class is get my students thinking about, the world that they live in. The world that they live in is not only home and school, but it's the whole planet.
I think like if we look at only one unit, so not my country or your country, because you talk about you used to live in another country, and sometimes like nationalism plays a big role in this issue. So if you start looking as a whole unit, a whole world, like UN sometimes try to propose us, I think this would be like really efficient to solve this issue.
Yes, it reminds me of a court case that was started from a person that was living in the Netherlands, and it's a state's responsibility to protect their citizens. And she had a court case against the Dutch government saying, if we look at climate change, the government's not doing their job because we are getting into the danger zone. And she actually won that court case. So if we're waiting for politics to change the world, I think we don't have that time. That's why I recommend it to be a change from the bottom up.
I think it was
Like
only this.
a revolution.
Yeah, revolution. Yeah, maybe one day.
Yeah.
If it was only this.
No, I think I'm okay. I can talk about this for hours, but
Yeah, you
I
cannot
have to
put.
teach.
Yeah, you cannot
So.
put a lot of. So
Yeah.
thank you for watching. If this helped you, we'll be like really grateful about helping you. And this is it. Bye. Finish.
okay.
Yeah, we could talk
Is it
like.
good? I don't know. Are you going to rewatch?